can really like this one. Again, I'm back here on the FairMormon page, Statements about Book of Mormon Geography in the 19th Century. We're going to click now on 1842. This is the big deal for the Mesoamerican advocates, and I'm going to show you this. First, we have Book of Mormon Index, Discovery of America predicted, but that's not that relevant. Times and Seasons article. Now, this is awesome. Look, it talks about area of Newark, Ohio, and this is from the January 1st, 1842 edition. It's important to recognize that this is, of course, North America, Newark, Ohio, or in the county of Licking, Ohio. And this is one of the largest earthworks in the world that they discuss here in the context of the Book of Mormon. So it's a good evidence that there's a link between the Book of Mormon and North America. As we go through this, I'm going to click on some of the footnotes so you see what this is. This is footnote number 2, which is evidences and proof of the Book of Mormon. And this was written by a man named Charles Thompson. It's been widely recognized that he largely copied from Benjamin Winchester's books. But I want to show you something else here. If you look at this carefully, there's a citation here to the Times and Seasons, and they give you one to a gospel link. I'm going to show you a much better, or easier to access anyway, reference for the Times and Seasons. If you go to centerplace.org, I've already set it up here, just centerplace.org, you type in. You come to the library menu, pull down to church history, and then you've got the Evening and Morning Star, the Messenger and Advocate, and the Times and Seasons. Now this is set up by the Restoration branches, formerly reorganized LDS, Community of Christ. So they have other things in here that the LDS Church today doesn't use, like this Latter-day Saints Herald and some other aspects of church history. But the Times and Seasons was the same for both. So we'll click on that. It gives you the contents. Now, if you remember over here, this is from Times and Seasons, Volume 3, Number 5, 1st of January, 1842. So we can find that here. We're going to Volume 3, Number 5, January 1st, 1842. We click on that. First thing in here is the Book of Doctrine and Covenants. I'm going to enlarge this a little bit to make it easier to see. Oops. Yeah, that's probably better. So the first thing in here is an excerpt from Section 1 of the Doctrine and Covenants. The next article is one that we just read the excerpt from, called Evidences and Proof of the Book of Mormon, which was the Charles Thompson book. Following that article in the Times and Seasons is, it's a long one, is an article, notice what this says, from the Gospel Reflector, Spiritualizing the Scriptures. Benjamin Winchester was the publisher and author of the Gospel Reflector, so anytime it says from the Gospel Reflector, it's almost always Benjamin Winchester's work. And why would Benjamin Winchester's article be here in the Times and Seasons? The reason is because he was working at the Times and Seasons from November 1841 through January of 1842. He was right there in Nauvoo working at the newspaper, and we see his articles appearing in every issue during that time. It also explains why they put this article from Charles Thompson in here, Evidences and Proof of the Book of Mormon, because Thompson, as I mentioned, copied a lot of his material from Benjamin Winchester. So, of course, working at the Times and Seasons, Winchester's going to write, "We are much pleased with the spirit manifested by the writer." So, basically, he's praising himself here. All right, going back to the FairMormon site, let's go back up. We just talked about this one, Times and Seasons of 1st of January, 1842. Now, the next issue has a continuation from Charles Thompson's book, and he talks about Christopher Columbus and Discovery of America. I absolutely love this comment right here. Look at this. These guys make this note that says, note that Columbus never reached the United States. He was confined to Mexico and the Caribbean. We talked about this in the earlier episode, but in fact, Columbus reached both Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, which are part of the United States, and he never made it to Mexico. He made it the closest he came to Mexico was Honduras. Just a little side note of the kind of things you have to watch with these guys on FairMormon. They have so much Mesomania that they can mislead you if you're not careful. Okay, the next one on here, one of my favorites of all time, Joseph Smith, the Wentworth Letter. I have a long chapter on this in the Brought to Light book and some of the other things, but I want to emphasize something here. So far, this is the first thing we've come across in 1842. written by Joseph Smith, or at least signed by Joseph Smith. Look at this. It says here, the remnant are the Indians that now inhabit this country, which they agree here, they point this out. What they don't tell you here is that the Wentworth letter was actually edited from a missionary pamphlet by Orson Pratt. And Orson Pratt went on for page after page, I think it's around 4 pages, discussing how the descendants of Lehi are all the Indians in North, Central, and South America, and the different tribes and so on. Joseph Smith crossed that whole thing out, all that hemispheric model stuff. He just crossed it off and clarified, saying the remnant are the Indians that now inhabit this country. Now, the Meso guys will tell you that this country actually means the entire hemisphere, North and South. But what they forget to tell you is that Mr. Wentworth, to whom Joseph wrote this letter, lived in Chicago. Joseph's in Nauvoo. They're a few hundred miles apart, but they live in the same state, plus the same country. So whether he's talking about the region, this country meaning the area of Illinois in the Midwest, or he's talking about this country in terms of the United States, the two of them would understand that. It's implausible, it's irrational even to say that Mr. Wentworth would understand this sentence to refer to the entire Western Hemisphere, North and South America. Just saying. Anyway, it's a fun one. Again, Parley Pratt reflects his hemispheric model. No surprise there. This one is worth looking at. This is another one. Let's look at the reference here, number 6. Catacomb of Mummies found in Kentucky. What this is again from the Times and Seasons. You can look it up here in the center place webpage if you want. But this is an excerpt from a book written by Josiah Priest, and it talks about the mummies that were found in Kentucky. But there were several of these extracts in the Times and Seasons during this time, and I discussed the reasons why I believe Benjamin Winchester mailed these into the Times and Seasons. Millennial Star. This one is interesting because let's look at the reference, number 8. It's reprinted from the Weekly Bostonian. Now, I've gone out to Boston and I've obtained a few copies of the Weekly Bostonian. There are only a few still in existence. But in my book on Lost Cities Area, I show that Benjamin Winchester was writing for the Bostonian, and this is another example of it right here. Now here, look at this. They say Joseph Smith wrote this. And what's the basis for them saying that? Of course, I completely disagree, and I show in my book in detail why Joseph Smith didn't write this, but here's their rationale. You're not going to believe this. Page 862 of this issue of the Times and Seasons states, the Times and Seasons is edited, printed, and published about the 1st and 15th of every month on the corner of Water and Bain Streets by Joseph Smith. This is what we call the boilerplate. It's at the end of every issue. It's basically like a big metal stamp that they put on there. And what these guys don't tell you is, first of all, it says it's edited, printed, and published. Are they claiming that Joseph Smith actually sat down in the print shop and operated the press? I don't think so. There's not a single historical account of Joseph Smith actually editing the Times and Seasons, apart from the Book of Abraham that was published in March. In fact, the one historical account relates that Joseph went to the office less than once a month while he was the editor, which gives you an idea that he couldn't possibly have been actively participating in it. It's just a boilerplate. So beyond that, here's the other. This is kind of funny too. They say the statement was signed ED, which means editor, which attributes it directly to Joseph Smith. Well, when you look into the history of this, and I have all the detail in my books, this was William Smith who was actually editing the Times and Seasons. Even though Joseph Smith was the nominal editor, he assigned it to his brother for reasons that I get into in detail in the book if you want to see. But the fact that it was signed editor is not attributing it directly to Joseph Smith. It proves Joseph Smith did not write it, or else he would have signed it. He signed everything he wrote. In fact, at one point, Wilford Woodruff wrote a letter saying that Joseph barely had time to even sign his name. Why would he have time to sign it as editor? Okay, here's another one, Times and Seasons. Again, their justification is the same boilerplate right here. Here it says, although Joseph Smith is listed as editor at this time, opinions vary on whether it may have actually been either John Taylor or Wilford Woodruff who wrote this unsigned article. Neither one of them could have. They were both sick. They were out of the office and weren't working in August or September. So neither one of them was even present. That's why we know William Smith was the actual editor. And it's obvious that Benjamin Winchester wrote this, likely edited by William or W.W. Phelps. It goes on to say here that John Taylor later became the editor of the Times and Seasons. But look at this rhetoric. Regardless whether it's Joseph William or who wrote this article, none of them wrote it. They just won't tell you that. And then last year we have the other two articles on the Times and Seasons that I've written about extensively. So there you go. The one statement in here by Joseph Smith was in the Wentworth letter, and they don't even tell you the historical context. They don't explain that this whole statement here, this critical statement that Joseph made, was actually a refutation of the hemispheric model that Orson Pratt talked about. Lots of fun.